It's good to be with everyone. Just for how this program's going to go, I'll just do some brief introductions. Then I'm going to hand it over to the MassDot team, Mega Projects team. It's going to give a little kind of a summary of where we are, where we're headed, and then there'll be opportunities for questions. I'm Dylan Fernandes. I'm the state senator for this area. This is the heart of my district. It goes from Falmouth all the way up to Pembroke. And these bridges lay in the center of the Plymouth and Barnstable district. So it was really important to me to host this forum. I want to recognize a few people in the room. I think I saw State Representative Stephen Exaros. Where is it? There he is. Who's here? This is Stephen's House District. Thank you, Stephen, for helping with this and all your bridge advocacy. I saw Representative Michelle Badger is here as well. Just taking notes. And we have the Board and Select Board as well represented tonight. Do you guys want to stand and wave, or just wave? Sorry, thank you. And I saw some balanced Select Board members here as well. Heather Goldstone in the back. Any other elected officials that we might have missed? Well, thank you all. That just shows, how seriously people of the region are taking this, especially the members of the Board and Select Board who have been steeped in this for a long time and go to every meeting. So they're a really good asset here for the town. I also want to take some time. I just want to thank Admiral McDonald and Maritime for hosting us this evening. We're so fortunate to have a remarkable institution in this academy that provides some of the best education kids will find in the region. One more housekeeping item. This is the first in a series of forums that we're hosting. So if you signed in, we're going to send out a survey afterwards. If you wouldn't mind filling that out, we're genuinely interested to know your feedback, what was helpful, what wasn't helpful, how we can improve these forum series for people. Because ultimately, this is for you. This is for the community. So,
oh my God in heaven.
We also have Senator Sears' office represented here, and Representative Hadley Luddy's office represented as well. Look, this is the most consequential project for our region since this canal was built over a century ago. And the decisions that are made around it in the next few years will decide the fate of transportation in this region for the next century. So it's really important to me, and I know to all of you, that we get this right, and also that we have community voices involved, and that this is a public, open, and engaging process. And that's why we're having this forum tonight, and that's why we've announced these series of forums that are going to be going on the Cape. We're also going to have some in Plymouth County as well, to make sure that people have a sense of what's happening and also have their voices heard. Because we know that how incredibly important that is. And we also know that we need new bridges. If anyone is a big nerd as I am and read the 2020 Army Corps report, you know that they explored all the options out there and came back and said that bridge replacement is by far our best option. And what happens if we don't replace the bridges? According to the report, it says that they have to go through a major rehabilitation, which means that one bridge would be shut down for 9 months, and then 2 years after that it would go to one-lane traffic. So that would cripple our region. It just can't happen. And so we need to new bridges. The good news is for the Sagamore, that has received federal funding, and that project is underway and also on track to hit its timeline and goals. And so this is, I just came over the bridge. Raise your hand if you just did that. So as I was coming over, one, I hit bridge traffic on my way here in the middle of April, which wasn't true when I grew up here. But now we know that around 50% of the workers on Cape Cod commute over the bridge every day. That's a big change in how this bridge has been used. And then I was also behind a Peter Pan bus on my way over the bridge that had its flashers on, because although it says it's a 2-lane bridge, we all know how you white knuckle that steering wheel on the way over. So these bridges were the best of its kind when they were made 90 years ago. They definitely need replacement now. So with that, let's get you guys updated. I'm so thrilled that Luisa Paiewonsky is with us, who's heading up, I hope I pronounced that correctly, her name has a lot of vowels, who is heading up the mega projects for the state, really taking the lead on this project. One of the first people I called when I became state senator, and we had a great conversation, and Luisa's just as excited as I am about these forums, giving people an opportunity to come ask questions and really engage with people directly. I think it shows her commitment, the mega projects team commitment, and the state's commitment to make sure the community is really involved in this. So without further ado, Luisa Paiewonsky.
People hear me with this microphone?
Yes.
Good afternoon. I'm Luisa Paiewonsky from MassDot. I'm the Executive Director. As you heard of the Mega Projects Delivery Program, the other mega project is the Alston Multimodal Project in Boston. Like Senator Fernandes, I want to thank the Maritime Academy. This is our second visit here, and I hope there are many more. It's a really wonderful facility. We really appreciate the warm hospitality. And I especially want to thank Senator Fernandes. He is right. The first time we met, we had a very intense discussion about the Cape Cod bridges. We were both getting excited about the prospects of this project getting going. And he really wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to brief Cape Codders and visitors, anyone who wanted to hear about the bridges, on a regular basis. We have had a number of large-scale open houses, periodic presentations, and this really enriches the opportunity to provide regular updates on the status of the project. Also, I would like to recognize some people in the audience who are joining today. I'm not sure if she has arrived yet, but Sarah Peak, she needs to know. There she is. Former state representative. Now with the governor's office, and Senator Fernandes was absolutely correct. This is a Commonwealth priority. This is not just a big project that we have at MassDot. The governor's office is tracking our progress very carefully. We provide monthly in-person updates and many communications in between, so that's been helpful. Also, former State Rep Joe Sullivan, also former chair of the Transportation Committee. Joe's here. I'd like to acknowledge somebody who is also a former chair of the Transportation Committee, Tom Hare, who passed away recently. Just want to say on behalf of MassDot, we are sorry for your loss. He was a great leader, a great great person, and we miss him as well. We had the opportunity, I had the opportunity to work with him at MassDot. He was a great presence, and we will not forget him. And finally, I'd like to introduce my colleagues. We say often that transportation is a team sport, and this crowd of people joining me today is an example of that. I'd like to recognize, in addition to Sarah Peake from the Governor's Office, my MassDot colleagues, John Delaire, Director of the Right-of-Way Bureau, Rich Bilski of District 5, Ann Kennedy of the Environmental Division, Craig Cashman of the Secretary's Legislative Office, Jackie Goddard of our Communications. Did I miss any MassDot people? Okay, and our outstanding consulting team led by David Anderson, John Smith, and Mark Kalinowski, all here to help answer your questions and provide information for you today. So let's get to it. Today's agenda, I'm going to speak as
Louder.
Louder.
Right next to the.
Thank you. Good advice. You heard most of what I said, right? Okay, so today's agenda, I'm going to try to keep it crisp because I know you have questions and comments, and we welcome them. I'm going to give you a quick update on our project status, talk about this next really crucial phase, environmental permitting. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on it because it's so essential, not only to protect the resources of Cape Cod, but to get us to the point where we can secure the federal money that Senator Fernandes mentioned. I'm going to talk about some ongoing and future field work. The reason I'm mentioning this is that it is a visible sign of progress. The Cape Cod bridges are coming. You're going to see people in hard hats and bright yellow safety jackets out doing work. I'm going to explain what that work is, but do know that's a sign of progress. We're excited about the survey and boring. It doesn't sound exciting, but I promise you it's a good sign. We're also going to talk about something that's been in the news and is an important issue to discuss, the early property acquisitions that whose process we recently started. I'm going to talk a little bit about what's happening there, why it is happening, and we'll be available to answer questions after that. Then I'm going to get to the schedule, the overall project schedule, and then next steps. And then we'll open it up for your questions. Okay, the project status is what we're doing now. In addition to preparing for the environmental documentation and the submittals and the permits and approvals that we'll need, you're going to hear all about it momentarily, we're doing two key activities. We are coordinating with our fellow agencies, and that just makes me realize I neglected to introduce a very key partner. Craig Martin is here from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. That is partner number one. We couldn't do it without him and his colleagues. As many of you know, the Corps of Engineers, they own both bridges, and there's a plan in place once the bridges are completed to transfer them to the ownership of the Commonwealth. But we are working shoulder to shoulder with the Corps of Engineers, and we appreciate their presence here today. So we're working with a number of other agencies who have oversight or roles in this project. The list is pretty long. And we're also doing as much public outreach as we can. In addition to Senator Fernandes' really important, good idea of having regular forums, we're also taking the opportunity to meet in smaller presentations, smaller groups. I'll let you know of some of the recent presentations that we've done, as well as communicating with, for example, the Bourne Recreation Authority. And we will continue doing that. We usually say yes when people invite us to speak. Large forums like this, smaller ones as well. You ask us, and we will show up. So when I talk about interagency coordination, I'm not kidding. This is a long list an incomplete list of the agencies that we work with on a regular basis to talk about the bridge projects, to make sure that we have an understanding of what their needs are, to make sure there are no surprises in the environmental process in case they're reviewers, such as the Federal Highway Administration, and to make sure that all of our activities are aligned. They're not duplicating each other, they're not bumping into each other, that we're all working as one large team to advance this project. We're doing it according to a plan you can see we put out in May of 2024, just to make sure that we had a comprehensive list of the agencies we're working with, and we understand the scope of work that we are doing together. And as I mentioned, as much public outreach as we can. We think it's really important. I have never worked on a project with such an engaged citizenry on a project. People are really tracking all of our progress, all of our steps, and that's why I say when they ask us to come talk about it, we are there. You'll see in a few minutes just how concretely this public interface has affected the design, not only of the bridges, but the roadways. Here's some recent ones. My first Cape Cod Bridges presentation was in January, Sierra Club. The Bridge Committee, home builders had their annual dinner. We presented there. Cape and Islands Municipal Leaders Group, the Cape Cod Bridges Advisory Group, Board Recreation Authority. The Cape and Islands Bridge Committee we will be updating quarterly, and generally when we finish remarks, we say, feel free to invite us back in a few months if you want to hear what else is happening. So that's a really important part of this project, as you'll see. The environmental process. This is a very large undertaking. Any project with an EIS, an environmental impact statement, and an EIR, an environmental impact report, means that it is a substantive document with a broad array of topics to study. It's especially important on Cape Cod bridges because Cape Cod has such important resources, not only environmental resources, but archaeological resources, historical resources, cultural resources. And we are doing a deep dive into studying all of our impacts to make sure that these massive structures that we're about to build have a minimum impact on a very fragile and important ecosystem, not only for Cape Cod, but for the state at large. So this is our impact statement. A little over a year ago, the Federal Highway Administration told us what we needed to study to make a good environmental impact report. In impact statement, state and federal. I'll mention in a minute our plan for filing the documents. And to the right is just a sampling of what we're doing deep dives in. Everything from traffic and pedestrian safety to wetlands and floodplains to air quality, noise, public utilities. That's been a significant project as part of this, relocating gas lines, public health. All of these require intensive analysis and documentation that will be reflected in the environmental documents. Once the documents are under review, we'll have an opportunity to communicate publicly about what's in them. You will have an opportunity to review them yourselves and provide us comments, and we'll have a forum to talk about the environmental documents. But get ready to read a pretty significantly large document for Cape Cod Bridges. And the good news is that in all of our work on studying the impacts, we're finding that despite the very large size of these projects and the broad area that they touch, the environmental impacts are relatively small. One key measure is, do we affect more than 5,000 square feet of wetland impacts? That has permitting implications. Fortunately, we do not. We are able to document safety improvements when you look at the design of the bridge compared to what we have right now. Senator Fernandes mentioned white knuckling over the bridge. We've all been there. The lanes are narrow, and there's really no room for recovery in the event of a breakdown or a crash. So the new bridges will significantly improve the safety. Multimodal, meaning not only trucks and cars will benefit from the new bridges, but so will bicyclists and pedestrians. They connect right to the canal, and it's very difficult to walk or bicycle over the bridge right now. It won't be when we replace them. Navigability improvements, The bridges themselves, we heard how old the bridges are. They're over 90 years old. They are eligible for a listing on the National Register of Historic Places and Structures. So they have historical significance. And one way that we've been able to mitigate it is by the very bridge design that you're going to see in a couple of minutes. So even though that's an impact, we're able to soften the blow, so to speak, by having a beautiful bridge design that evokes the current design and captures the historical significance of the current bridges without the age and deterioration of the current bridges. And we found that despite a long history of human settlement here on Cape Cod, the impacts to sensitive archaeological resources are not anticipated to be significant. So all good news for getting through the environmental process. We talk about the MIPA and NEPA process, the federal process, the state process, but it actually is broken down into a number of components. The EIS and EIR that I mentioned, those are the big ones, but there are a number of other permits and approvals that we need to get, addressing the coastal zone, addressing historic resources, addressing the Clean Water Act. I won't bore you by listing all of these, but I will say on both the state and the federal side, we have a lot of work to do to get the environmental permits and approvals we need to build the new Cape Cod bridges. Okay. As I said, we've had extensive public involvement in this, dating back years, long before I arrived on the scene in December. And all of this has been the opposite of a check the box. We've listened carefully, we've engaged, we've come up with different ways of interacting. I think the open house that we had as recently as last November or so and drew more than 450 people. Kind of a eureka moment that people really want to come and look at the renderings, look at the picture, and interact with us individually. So we expect to have more of those in the future. But most importantly, it wasn't just to talk about the projects, it was to hear from you, what did you want out of Cape Cod Bridges project? And we'll start with the roadways. We presented dozens and dozens of interchange ideas at these public meetings, and winnowing through them, not only at the advisory group, but in public forums, we've got public consensus on what the interchange designs are. These are really important. The bridges get all the attention, but one of the problems with the current bridges is that the interaction of the bridge and the current interchanges are poor. They poorly connect to the regional system. Part of the traffic problems that you're facing right now are not only due to the bridges, but to the interchanges. So we're designing interchanges with significant input from you that will address those concerns, that will ease the traffic, but most importantly reflect what you asked us to do. So we will take your consensus recommendation to us and we will put it as a recommended alternative in our environmental documents. And this is what the new bridge will look like. It's a twin network tied arch bridge type. Again, it came from you. It came from Cape Cod residents who showed up at our meetings. You told us what you really liked was that beautiful, graceful arch. We showed you a number of different alternatives, and this is the one that you liked. It had, of course, to have technical evaluation with our bridge designers, but it also had a whole lot of public input. And this is what you said most closely matched your desire to evoke the current bridges, but function much better than the current bridges. You'll notice that the piers are outside of the water. There have been some discussions publicly about vessel strikes of bridges. You'll see that this prevents that from happening. There are a number of design interventions that will help keep the bridge safe and secure. Also, we talked earlier about how difficult it is to walk or bike over it, or much less connect to the beautiful pathways along the canals and into Cape Cod. It will be much easier when the new bridge is built. Sagamore, this is a rendering. This isn't exactly what it looks like, but it's it's what we're talking about, a 14-foot wide shared use path, shared use meaning bicyclists and pedestrians. You can see there's a little lookout area that we're contemplating putting in the design. We both want to keep people safe by having fencing alongside the shared use path, and we recognize that people want to look out at a spectacular view. So we're looking at different types of fencing materials that will blend that security and visibility for people traveling over the bridge. We're also talking about design elements, including landscaping that will signal to people that they've arrived in a very special place. And we'll have more to say about that in future presentations. So when I talk about a more efficient design from a traffic perspective, as I mentioned, the current bridge has two 10-foot lanes. It's 40 feet wide. I'm sorry, 4 10-foot lanes, 40 feet wide, curb to curb, 6.5-foot sidewalk, which is minimal, and no real breakdown capacity. The new bridge will have a 14-foot wide shared use path, 10-foot shoulders, so when you have the inevitable flat tire or breakdown, there's room to put the car so the traffic can move past it. 12-foot lanes, which are much more standard, and an entrance and exit lane. I mentioned the critical importance of the interchanges leading up to the bridge. This will allow a smooth entry onto the bridge from the interchanges in both directions. So they won't be full lanes going across the bridge, but they will allow for traffic to move into the main lanes at a much more reasonable pace than they're forced into right now. So we're going from 40-foot bridge to 2 twin spans. You can see one of the issues with the Sagamore inboard bridge right now is the potential for head-on collisions because traffic is coming at each other. There's no real separation between these. This time we will be physically separating northbound and southbound traffic with much wider bridges. So we expect to have major safety improvements with the new bridge. Ongoing future field work. I'll try to move it along because I'll bet you have questions. But as I mentioned, this is a good sign. You're going to be seeing survey crews out there. This is what it will look like. They'll be on the sides of the road. Thanks to our outstanding District 5 office, they are keeping us on our toes to make sure that we're not doing this work in the middle of heavy traffic periods. We're going to try to keep off the roadways as much as possible. It is possible that some of our survey crews will need to step onto private property, and we will make sure that all property owners get adequate notification about that. But the work is being performed to make sure that we are accurately describing base or current conditions so that the design can reflect an accurate current condition and can respond to current conditions. So survey work really is important. Not glamorous and probably often not noticed, but when you see them, you'll know what it's about. Borings, this is taking sort of core samples. You can see an example of some of the equipment that we'll be using. You see it nearby. Currently, it's taking place on Army Corps of Engineers property. It will be coming to Town and Bourne property along state highways. And in the fall, we will be notifying some property owners that we will be taking some of these borings in their yards. It will require some vegetation management and occasional taking of a tree or paring back of tree branches. If that is the case, we will compensate the property owner. That will not take place until the fall, again with full notification. But it is designed to make sure that we understand the composition and strength of the soil that helps us design a more robust bridge project and approaches. Finally, you'll see some work on subsurface utility engineering. Utilities is often unseen, but really critical part of this work. We needed to develop a utility relocation plan. You probably heard about the big gas line removal, and it will run under the canal, but there's a lot of other utility work that needs to take place too. So our crews will be out there. You'll see them out there pulling up manhole covers and putting their equipment out there. That's what it's about. It's about the Cape Cod Bridges project. property acquisitions is something you may have heard in the news. And I will say, first of all, that a project of this size and complexity goes through a very long design period. And one of our major inputs to the design is trying to minimize impacts to private property, especially homes. Did the mic work? Yeah, okay. So we try to avoid any impacts to private properties. We try to avoid taking portions of homes, portions of yards, and especially we try to avoid taking homes in their entirety. In this case, with the Sagamore Bridge, it was unavoidable. As I've said, the bridges are massive. The new bridge is touching down in a settled neighborhood. And we have contacted property owners to let them know that we will be taking their homes by eminent domain. We recognize that this is a hugely disruptive process for homeowners, and that is a very hard piece of news to accept. The Commonwealth acquisition process is governed by federal and state regulations. They're all designed to make sure that property owners get every nickel they have coming to them, not only to compensate them for the loss of their home, but to compensate them for relocation and many other associated costs, right down to differences in mortgage rates. They will be made whole. That said, we understand that this is not a financial transaction only. In many cases, people know their neighbors, they've raised their families there. And one of the reasons that we started 2.5 years before construction was we wanted to give homeowners adequate time. We don't want to be rushing people out of their homes to make way for heavy equipment or anything like that. So we started early. We're in conversations with homeowners right now. But I wanted you to hear directly from us that it is something we try to avoid, and we try to handle it as sensitively as we can. The purpose of these acquisitions is multiple. One is that the neighborhood that is primarily affected by the home takings is very close to the path of the new bridge touching down. Initially, some of that land will be used to assemble the massive cranes that will be working in the water and on shore to assemble the bridge. But after that, we will be building temporary retaining walls, providing platforms on the site where the homes are currently on. And then, as the bridge is constructed, that land will be used for stormwater management infrastructure, the new bridges, approaches, shared use paths, and access points for our maintenance and operations crews. So I think some of the initial public discussion of this was we just needed it for temporary storage of equipment. The needs are far more permanent than that, again, recognizing the impact on homeowners. So it is for a public purpose, and it will be a permanent public purpose related to the construction of the Sagamore Bridge. And this is just sort of giving you an example. This is a rendering, of course, but I mentioned the huge size of the cranes that will be working to put together the bridges, and some of these represent, these brown buildings here represent the homes. So you can see that it will be a construction zone. It would not be advisable or safe for these particular homes that we've identified to have families living in them due to the heavy work that's going on. Finally, I'd like to talk a little bit about the schedule. We will be right now working busily sharing portions of our environmental documents with our federal partners and state partners. Summer of 2025, we will be filing our state and federal environmental documents. We plan to go through the winter of 2026, after which in the spring and summer we will start the procurement process. This will not be a quick process because it is not a quick construction job, but we are considering a design-build approach. We're considering accelerated bridge construction techniques, including pre-assembling some of the components of the bridge so that we can move it along. That said, it will be a years-long process of constructing the new bridges, but we will move it along as fast as we can. I'll also say that we plan to look for ways to incentivize contractors to, one, minimize traffic impacts, and two, get the bridges built as quickly as possible. The last thing I want to say about that, though, is that the bridge impacts will be lessened by the fact that we're building it parallel to the existing bridge. So we will keep the existing bridge open throughout the construction phase, so there'll be no loss of traffic capacity, and then once the new bridge is ready to go, we will demolish the existing Sagamore Bridge. And just next steps, continuing our coordination with our federal and state partners, continuing to advance the design. We're advancing the design and permitting of both Sagamore and Bourne bridges. We'll continue to interact with the property owners, both homeowners and commercial owners. We will have public meetings specific to the mitigation we plan for the construction of the bridges in the area of recreational areas, specifically working with the Bourne Recreation Authority and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. And we will have NEPA and MEPA, environmental document-oriented public meetings this summer. So we'll be back before too long. This is how you can meet with us, contact us if you have any questions that you don't get to today. We have an email address, mass.majorprojects@qt.state.us, to our chief engineer. You can visit our website for the bridges, and this is my very long email address that you can also reach out to me. But there are lots of ways to reach us. Thank you for your attendance today, and happy to answer any questions.
Now we'll open it up for questions for the remainder of the time. We've got a solid 45 minutes. Just come to the mics. Jack and Phoebe from my office can help assist. There's a lot of people here, so I'm sure people have a lot of questions. Let's just be mindful about being able to share equal opportunity for those questions, and also understand that this is the first of several forums as well. And so thank you for opening it up. And MassDot team, do you guys want to stay there, or would you like to come up here? If questions are related, it's up to you. So we can give you guys a mic as well. Two mics as well. Great. Go ahead. And we'll just, do you guys just want to call it out for questions?
All right, my name is Mark Hendel. This is my wife, Joan. We live in the Round Hill neighborhood in Sagamore, and we wanted to let you see some of the faces of the lives that we're tearing apart. We were both born and raised in New England. We met while living in another state, and by chance, in December of 2023, we found an offer to purchase some land in the Round Hill neighborhood that came with a spec house. We were living in another state at the time. We purchased the land, began construction on the house in March of 2024. Not a word was mentioned to us about this project. We saved our entire life savings to buy this house. This was our forever home. We both had a dream of living on the Cape since we were kids and growing up in New England. And we moved across the country to be here, and we are not happy. So on March 3rd, we got a knock on our door about this eminent domain, and we were both in shock. We still are. We've got questions going through our head. Every day the stress is totally unbearable. The toll on our mental and physical health is visible to us every single day. We're confused, we're angry, we're stressed, we're worried about our future. We don't have the mental or physical endurance to move again. This was our forever home. We are not against fixing the bridges, we understand that, but there have to be other options that don't destroy the historic neighborhood on the Cape and our dream home that we built to our specifications. So our questions are I just have 7 questions, and I will just read them because I want them on the record. But we want to know where the report on the bridge that explains exactly what the problems are with it, so we can read it. Senator Fernandes referred to that 2020 report by the Army Corps. I read it. It does not have details. It just has, here's what we think. Why can't the bridge be repaired? Again, that's in the report a little bit, but we would like to see some details of why. Why are there other options for replacement that don't affect our neighborhood that were rejected? On the original website, when we finally got to it, we just moved into our house like 4 months ago. And we finally stumbled on the website. We see a bunch of other options with red X's on them. Who decided that? Who decided the bridge had to be on this side instead of that side where there would be less impact to neighborhoods and homes? How can you do all this taking without having a final plan? You've told us yourself that you don't even have a final plan. You don't have the permits you need. What happens, this has happened in my hometown of New London, Connecticut. What happens when you take land from people and then don't use it, and you've destroyed their lives and moved them out? How can you move forward with all this when you don't have all the federal funding? You have some of it for the Sagamore, but you don't have any for the Bourne. What happens if that falls through? Are you going to build one bridge and leave the other one to fall down? Anyways, my last question is very personal to us. We've been told that the law says we can be left no worse off than we are. A MassDot rep told us that. You're going to have a very hard time making us less worse off with a brand new house customized to our specifications, with brand new appliances, septic systems, soft close, I mean, the whole works. Everything we did for us. We even picked the location because we insisted that we could see the water from our home and that we lived on a quiet street. We live on a dead-end street off of a dead-end street, and I can see the canal. I could have seen the whales today if I was looking out the window at the right time. These are non-negotiables to us. We have a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house with hardwood floors, 2 stories. I dare you to find one on the Cape, Upper Cape, because we have to be near our family. That's why we moved back here. That's going to meet our needs for the price you're going to give us. We are totally in chaos.
Let me just very briefly respond. I just want to acknowledge the disruption and how upset you are. I understand. We understand. And when we say we're going to make you whole, we know that we're talking about financially. We can't replace your home exactly for you. We understand that this is hugely disruptive. We do have full funding for the Sagamore Bridge, and we'll be happy to provide you with the study and the report that shows why the bridge cannot be repaired instead of replaced, but I do acknowledge how upsetting this is to you and your family.
Well, my name is Barry Comer. I live over in Yarmouth. And I made the mistake of reading this report. There has been some miscommunication for the past 3 years. I have sent data to Senate legislators, Warren, Markey, Keating, Sear, Diggs, Moran, Governor Healy, the Sierra Club, all those people you listed there with these different alternatives for the bridge or other alternatives. Alternative H was listed on page, hang on, I'm a little nervous because I usually don't do this. ES6. two tunnels would be twice as much the cost of new bridges. Listed right now is $4.5 billion. However, on page 6 of the same report, an estimated cost for a single 4-lane tunnel with the length would be $1.2 billion. Now, in my world of math, that's $3.3 billion less than a bridge. The other alternative, which if anybody's using the canal, they would hate this, is to fill in the canal. Now, that was listed as you can't do that because it's a federally regulated waterway. Well, Congress could just say it's not federally regulated anymore, and you fill it in. Now, I actually have the data, which all of you people should have. The cost to fill it in and put 12 lanes of highway where the bridges are is $50 million. Million, not billion. So there's something wrong with bridges. All we've heard was bridges, bridges, bridges for the past 3 years. None of this other stuff was looked at.
I'll just say briefly, you did send us information, and I believe we have corresponded, and we did explain why a tunnel is not viable and would be very much more expensive, and it is not feasible to fill in with others. But we do appreciate your comments and your sending in your data.
Just a quick reminder, let's keep it to questions and try and stay under a minute, 30 seconds, 2 minutes. Like I mentioned, we have multiple of these. I want to give as many people a chance as possible to speak. Luisa and the team to respond. Thank you.
Well, back to panelists. I'll start off by accepting that you're going to replace the bridges. And so with that as a premise, are the contractors you anticipate likely to bid and win local or regional? That was a yes, no. Do we have the capability to do that regionally, and do you think local contractors will do it?
I would expect a vigorous competition to build these bridges.
I was asking geography.
I can't tell you where they'll come from because we are required to do.
I understand
competitive
government
bidding process,
contracting.
and each contractor must be pre-qualified by the Mass Department of Transportation.
All right, I'll ask the question in a different way. Okay. Are there contractors in New England capable of doing this, and you
Yes.
anticipate inviting them to bid?
I think we won't need to invite them to bid. I think they will
Okay,
bid. Yes.
good. And at its peak, how many hundreds or thousands of workers would be working on it? About. High hundreds, low thousands would be my guess, but something like that. And have you thought, since we have an enormous housing problem here, and we have an enormous traffic and commuting problem, how are you going to get 1,000 men in and out every day? Or are you anticipating doing local housing for them for the 8 to 10 years that they build the bridge? That was. Maybe you got that all figured out, or put it on your list.
We will certainly have a well-documented traffic plan. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yes, my name is Dave Collins. I live in the same area as Mark and Joan live in on Cecilia Terrace. Actually, I live on Eleanor Avenue. And I didn't get a notice that they're taking my house, but they're taking the house across the street from me, which is exactly 57 feet from my front door, and going to use it for a staging area for heavy equipment. I'm 81 years old, I'm a combat vet, and I won't live long enough to see the bridge done. I've got stage 4 cancer, and I'll be damned if I want to sit there the rest of my life and watch that bridge be built out my front door and listen to it day and night while they work on it. Something else has to be done, some type of wall, something to prevent the dirt, the noise, and everything else that's going to take place. And it's all going to be within 50 to 60 feet from my front door. Something else has to be considered.